How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over part 2, everything performance-wise that I've done to my 2017 Mini JCW. Let's start with the suspension. This car sits on Mini's OEM in-house performance coilover setup. This is a height adjustable set. It doesn't have any damper settings, but it is maximized for the best performance and comfort that they could provide from the factory. This is not its lowest setting. I actually have the rear set about as low as they can go, but the front has a little bit more room. I really like this proportion that it has here because it's fairly even front and back, and there's just a little bit of a gap under each fender. It's not totally slammed, and I like that really even shape of the amount of gap that you can see around the wheel. I think this is pretty much the perfect ride height. As most of you Mini owners should know, one of the very first suspension mods you should do to a car when you first buy it is put a bigger rear sway bar on it. I've done that. I've also put a bigger front sway bar on it, which some people find controversial, but this kit is from Eibach, and they actually make a kit that goes front and back. I think this is a 23 millimeter rear and a 28 millimeter front. That combined with the Pro suspension gives it a really nice ride. It doesn't have a lot of body roll. It's very controlled, and because I'm controlling body roll with sway bars instead of really stiff springs, for long road trips, it's just about as comfortable as any other car out there. The next piece to mention on the subject of suspension is my front camber plates. These right here are from Silver Project, and I have these set at about 1.5 degrees of front camber right now. I've had some people tell me who have seen pictures of this online that I have it inserted improperly because of the angle this way. Most camber plates are just set longitudinally across the car. I have mine adjusted this way because it actually provides extra caster. The caster gives you that little bit of extra camber while you're turning so you don't have a massive amount driving in a straight line. I've done some fiddling around and some testing, and I really like the way that this performs. If I had been able to experience the camber plates on this car when I first bought it, that would have been the first thing I did, because that has made the biggest difference out of everything I've done to the car. The feel of immediacy on turn-in and the extra grip you get at the extremes, really impressive. You can also see I have an NM strut bar here. These cars are pretty rigid from the factory, but this gives it just that little bit of extra protection from chassis flex. For more added chassis stiffening, these are actually a little bit harder to see, but under here, those right in the center are made by Craven Speed. There's a pair of them, front and back, and those are replacements for OEM chassis braces that run left and right between the exhaust channel in the car. I actually went to Craven Speed's headquarters in Portland and got those installed in their garage while I was there on Minitix Estates. Now obviously tires do play a huge role in how a car performs, but what I have on here right now is really nothing impressive. These were $230 shipped for the full set from eBay. They are a Cosmo Mucho Macho. These are a high-performance all-season tire, and during the pandemic when I needed new rubber, I really didn't want to shell out 800 bucks from my pocket. So those are decent. They're not great, but they work. My favorite tires that I ever put on this car are a Falcon Asinus RT615K Plus. I put about 6,000 miles of road trip life on those tires, and I also went to about 8 track days in them, in this car on one set of tires, and they still have rubber on them. They've worn totally evenly. I've just been so impressed with them, and they've been my favorite tire I've ever put on this car. And of course, just as important as the tires are the brakes. The pads I'm using in here are from a brand called iSweep. I found them on ECS Tuning, and they're actually significantly cheaper than the factory pads, and they also have a lot of different compound options, so I can go to the track, get something sticky, and then put on street pads for regular use. Behind the wheels, you can see I have drilled slotted rotors. These are from a company called R1 Concepts. I've ridden on these for about 20,000 miles now, and they've held up really well through lots and lots of track days. So that is all of the suspension goodies. Now, let me tell you about the juicy stuff. Let me talk about the power. This car comes with a 2-liter 4-cylinder with a turbo from BMW, and immediately I put on this Dynon Elite tuner. This is just a chip. It's a plug-and-play unit. It plugs into the it plugs into the throttle body. It plugs into the mass air pressure sensor right here, and it plugs into the fuel rail back here. And basically all it does is take the information that all of those sensors are sending to the car, and it manipulates it, and what it outputs tells the engine to make more boost, change the timing around, and it ends up making you more power. Dynon claims that that unit by itself, just plugged into a stock car, makes an extra 50 horsepower and 75 pounds of torque. You can see here, obviously, I have an aftermarket intake. This one's from K&N. I know it's not a cold air intake. It lets in warmer air, but it does let in more air. And as we all know, engines are just air pumps, and if you can put more air in them, it'll put more air out and you make more power, along with a few other things. I'm not worried about the extra heat that this lets in because, and this is kind of my party trick, this is the one that I'm most excited about. I have installed methanol injection on this car. Here's how it works. From the perspective of somebody who's not an engineer, what I do is, in here, I put, instead of wiper fluid, I put methanol. At the very bottom of this methanol tank, which is my wiper fluid tank, I put an insert. And that insert goes through a tube that runs up through this filter, through a pump that sits right here underneath my windshield cowling. You can see it right through there. Through a tube, underneath here, hidden indiscreetly. Right here, this is the methanol tube. And that goes right down there into my charge pipe. And there's a nozzle down there that sprays in a mixture of that methanol into the intake tract. To put it simply, because I'm not an engineer and frankly I don't know all the details myself, the methanol gets inserted into the intake tract after it's gone through the turbo, so it's already been heated. And the methanol is basically just a really high octane fuel. And it, mixed with the half and half water mixture that it's in, cools down the combustion process and lets the engine use all of the timing that it needs to create more power. And here you can see my dyno results from before I added the methanol to after I added the methanol. You can see here where I used to have a power spike and then it dropped. With the methanol, the power comes on earlier and it flattens out at the top and it doesn't start dropping off until way later. The effects of that dyno graph are kind of hard to explain in words, but when you feel the difference that it makes to an engine, it's really magical. It makes a lot more power. So in the end, what those dyno graphs showed is that this car makes, to the wheels, to the front wheels, 285 wheel horsepower and torque. I also have a catless downpipe that you can't see in the car, of course, so here's some video of me putting it in. This is from Mario Palza in California. It's ceramic coated so it holds its heat and creates better exhaust flow. I also removed the secondary cat and I put smaller resonators and mufflers in the exhaust. For a front-wheel drive car that's focused on both performance and comfort, I've had this car for a little over 3 years. I've put about 45,000 miles on it. I've taken it to 8 or 9 track days now. I've been around the country in it. I did 6,000 miles in 12 days as part of one of Mini's cross-country road trip kind of customer appreciation events called Mini Takes the States, and I could not be more happy with it. It's quiet, it's comfortable. Well, it's quiet when I want it to be. It's loud when I want it to be. It does what I want it to do. It handles really well, and it puts a big smile on my face. So that's everything I've done to this car, both cosmetically and performance-wise. Thank you for watching. Please keep up to date and make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell up top that tells you when I post a new video. And maybe I'll do some more videos with this car. I'll definitely be posting more videos of the Miata. If you haven't seen the video where I painted the bumper on the Miata, please watch that. It turned out so good and I'm so happy with it. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good day. Bye.